We must realize that we are all in the same boat, and we can either make our country a hell or a place where life is good. It is up to us.
The new president rallied his people to face austerity, but he was spared by oil. Lots of oil. As much, some thought, as Saudi Arabia. In 1977, Lopez Portillo announced huge reserves offshore in the Gulf. In this age, the world is divided between countries that have oil and those that do not. We have it. We must think big in order to be great. We will be great. With the promise of oil, President Lopez Portillo's vision was no longer one of austerity. It was one of grandeur. Past presidents could dream of either creating wealth or redistributing it. Lopez Portillo could dream of both. The existence of millions of Mexicans who are dispossessed is an outrage which we must redress by giving them the means so that by their own efforts they can overcome their conditions. Oil will provide a powerful foundation for our industry, guaranteeing a degree of economic independence our country has never known. All Mexican presidents commit themselves to fulfill the promise of the revolution. Perhaps more than any other, Lopez Portillo would have the resources to do it. But these were still dreams, buried 3 miles under the ocean. The challenge of development fell to Mexico's national oil company, Pemex, and its new director, Jorge Diaz Serrano.
You have to bring it up, and that's a big job. To develop an oil field is quite a proposition. And we had to develop not only one field, but we had to develop hundreds of oil fields, drill thousands of wells.
Come on there, let's go!
Roughnecks from Texas helped Pemex get started. It had to expand or build from scratch its entire infrastructure. A massive undertaking financed by massive borrowing. Mexico borrowed for the new drilling platforms that sprouted in the Gulf. It borrowed to buy tankers and build deep water ports. It borrowed from the world's bankers to export to the world, to the US, Canada, Europe, Japan, and Israel. The world was thirsty for oil. Prices had soared, and banks were eager to lend. It was a massive undertaking with a promise of huge returns.
And there was a spirit, was a mysticism involved with this. We were all very, very happy, enthusiastic, and we knew we had a huge thing in our hands. It was up to us, to all of us, from the office boy to the roughneck refinery operator to complete this task. And I was there 4 years and a half. And in 4 years and a half, we accomplished something really important for not only for Mexico, but for the world.
With oil money flowing in, Lopez Portillo began to realize his vision: to help the campesinos feed the nation, to develop agriculture for export. Lopez Portillo presided over new urban projects. He made huge investments in cities away from Mexico City, whose population was growing unmanageable.
Venga como quiera al planetario Tabasco 2000. El centro educativo.
Tabasco 2000, a new city with a planetarium and a space-age entertainment center in the oil-rich state of Tabasco.
Venga como quiera al planetario Tabasco 2000.
Lopez Portillo began to carve it out of the jungle in the late 1970s to accommodate new oil workers. The economy was growing faster than at the height of the miracle. Lopez Portillo was realizing his dream of grandeur for Mexico and for himself. Jose Lopez Portillo lived an elegant life, as this official profile shows. He was portrayed as a vigorous, powerful president to lead a vigorous, powerful nation. A man who also found time to cultivate the life of the mind. He is shown caring for his mother, and she for his spiritual well-being. He also cared for his immediate family and gave them all jobs in the government. He provided for their retirement in a 5-mansion complex outside Mexico City. There has always been a certain level of corruption in Mexico. During Lopez Portillo's oil boom, corruption hit a new high. Lopez Portillo made his childhood friend Arturo Durazo Mexico City's chief of police. Chief Durazo also aspired to the grand life. His son enjoyed Studio 54, New York's most fashionable discotheque in the 1970s. Durazo built a replica here in a country retreat outside Mexico City. He got the property from a drug dealer. On these pedestals, Durazo placed busts of President Lopez Portillo, the mayor of Mexico City, and himself in the middle. His wife wanted a dog track, so he built one. All this on a salary of $350 a month. One of his scams involved this mausoleum in Mexico City. He planned an addition where his policemen would be buried and mandated monthly deductions from their pay. Much of the money went to Chief Durazo. The addition was never completed. Some oil money was being skimmed. Much more went to unproductive investment. Lopez Portillo expanded the steelworks at the city of Lázaro Cárdenas. It was a time when the world was glutted with cheap steel. He built a 750-mile gas line to the Texas border at a cost of $1.5 billion. But Mexico never reached agreement with the U.S. to buy the gas. The only money flowing into Mexico was from oil and from foreign bank loans. Mexico had become the world's fourth largest exporter, totally dependent on oil revenues. If the price of oil dropped, Mexico's economy could collapse. In June 1981, the price of oil dropped.
We had indications from our clients that they had received telegrams from the Arab countries that they were ready to drop the price $4 per barrel. And of course, that was an attractive proposition that they could not decline if we were willing to meet the prices. They will continue with us. Otherwise, they will sever their relations with us.
Diaz Serrano met their price without consulting the economic cabinet. He was fired and became ambassador to the Soviet Union. Jose Andres de Oteiza, who had opposed the price drop, took charge.
We had to wait and see what the others were going to do. Basically, the Arabs and the OPEC countries, they had the basic share of the market, and we were just waiting to see what they were going to do.
Mr. Oteiza afterwards, in public, declared that he was raising the prices $2, and that people, customers that did not buy at that time will be sent to the end of the list, or will never be able to buy oil from Mexico. He was very drastic about it.
We tried, we didn't know what the adjustment was going to be, so we tried to raise it, not to raise it, just to eliminate part of the drop of $2 and see what happened.
He thought he had the customers, and unfortunately, what happened next, the cancellation of all our contracts, proved that he was wrong.
In the summer of 1981, Mexico lost 2/3 of its exports. Pemex regained its market by September. But by then, Mexicans had lost confidence in their economy. They had begun to convert pesos into dollars.
We had no exchange controls, and therefore people could go to the bank and ask for as many dollars as they wanted and get the dollars and take them away. It wasn't illegal to do so.
And we began to face a very serious capital flight, especially during the months of July and August of 1981, when we lost probably something in the neighborhood of $9 billion.
Mexicans spent their money abroad. They bought more than half the condominiums along this beach in Texas. Oil had overvalued the peso, and dollars were cheap. Mexico borrowed billions of dollars to counter the capital outflow. It could have devalued the overvalued peso and made dollars more expensive to buy. But the president was reluctant.
The prestige of the president and the presidency and the government was linked explicitly by President Lopez Portillo to the value of the peso vis-a-vis the dollar. And he said once, and I quote, he said, "A president who devalues is devalued himself."
Defendamos
Let us defend our peso.
nuestro peso.
Let us affirm and reaffirm the right to make our own decisions with regard to monetary policy, with tariffs, with licenses, with policies to promote exports. That is the structure that benefits the country. That is the structure I am committed to defend like a dog.
He said that he was going to defend the parity of the Mexican peso like a dog. Unfortunately, that expression was not accepted by the community very well. and the capital flight continued, the movement from pesos into dollars, and we were losing money and foreign exchange day by day.
We would bring in the money every day through a variety of efforts and techniques and vehicles that we were using to borrow, and the money would literally go away the next day.
When Lopez Portillo finally devalued the peso in February '82, it was too late. The capital flow continued. Foreign bankers lost confidence and called in their loans. The pride of Mexico is seen in the monuments to independence which adorn Mexico City. The Angel of Independence celebrates the end of 300 years of Spanish rule. Mexicans revere the young cadets who fought to their death rather than yield to invading U.S. forces in 1847. There is even a monument to petroleum, commemorating the seizure of foreign oil companies in 1938, an assertion of Mexico's independence from foreign capital. On July 23, 1982, Treasury Secretary Silva Herzog gazed up at another monument, the very symbol of foreign capital, the United States Treasury. Mexico could not meet the bank loans due in August.
And the secretary told me, well, my friend, you really have a problem. So I turned back to him and I said, look, Mr. Secretary, I'm sorry, but I don't have a problem. We both have a problem. And that began to be felt.
The U.S. did have a problem. Major banks had lent nearly half their assets to Mexico. Paul Volcker of the Federal Reserve and Secretary Donald Reagan arranged an emergency loan for Mexico and a meeting of the world's bankers in New York on an August Friday. Mexico would be broke on Monday.
And the moment people found out we were there, the stock market got very nervous, and the stocks of the major banks started to drop. Some of them dropped very heavily. We had this funny impression that as we were walking down Park Avenue in front of all these banks, you know, everything was shaking because we were walking down the avenue and the stock prices were dropping. And it was an incredible feeling of enormous responsibility, almost overwhelming feeling of responsibility about the situation, but also you had a kind of an afterthought about how important it was what we were going to do.
And well, we told them that in that day, Friday the 20th of August, we had a level of reserves of about $180 million in liquid reserves, and for the following Monday, we had to make payments to the financial community all over the world of close to $300 million. So the situation was very clear. We had run out of money. We have been facing a liquidity problem, a cash problem.
In an unprecedented meeting at the Federal Reserve, the world's bankers began to restructure $80 billion of Mexico's debt. The conditions were massive cuts in Mexico's spending. A few days later, President Lopez Portillo gave his last address on the state of his nation. It was bankrupt. His dream of grandeur for Mexico was gone.
To those whom society has forgotten, those whose forgiveness I asked 6 years ago,
Escúcheme, por favor. A los desposeídos y marginados,
to those whom society has forgotten,
a los que
to
hace
those
6
whose
años
forgiveness I asked 6 years ago and have made my personal
responsabilidad
responsibility, We have made some progress. But my sadness is because I couldn't do a better job. Let us do our duty every day. Let us be deserving of our rights. Let us accept our challenges and honor our commitments. Let us constantly renew freedom, our will to achieve justice, and continue to make the revolution within the revolution, which before the eyes of the world marches on. Mexico has lived. Mexico lives. Mexico will live.
¡Viva México!